Right, we're finished with Mitchie and all his proverbs in his opening concepts book, but his Proverb 21 we're going to stick at for two more videos, and this is one of them. This double tiger play concept that he brings in, and I just want to look at what Dirk Schiemann had to say. Dirk Schiemann was, I have to say, I just think he's great. I think he's a great commentator on his YouTube videos. I think his book is brilliant. He's also a lovely person. He came to the Irish Open and got shot on by the dice gods, and yet was so pleasant and nice to everybody. And he just lifted the event. And so I'm a big fan of Dirk Schiemann. And in his book, he talks about section 5.2 is talks about the double hit with multiple homeboard blots, and this is what he had to say. But just a reminder of what the double tiger play is. Double tiger is when you do a double hit and you leave two blots in your home board to be hit back, which looks vulnerable. So if you want to kind of even think about this as a kind of a warm up, how would you play 3-2? This is the position Dirk Schiemann starts with, and he says, well, look, 3-2 is great. You can forward with the 3 at the back and make a lovely anchor up the top there on our 20 point. It's very helpful, but again, these little kind of precepts, as I call them, or principles, I'm trying to identify kind of rules for double tiger play. This is directly from Dirk Schiemann. He says, double tiger play is often correct when our opponent is split to our 5 and our 4 points, because these are the most valuable homeboard points. And I've added the emphasis in red there myself. And we should take considerable risks to fight for them. So here, we could play nice and passively at the back and make a 20-point anchor, which is not a bad anchor. Second or third best anchor we could have there on the opponent's 4 point. But it's passive, and it's doing nothing to kind of hit black back, and they can again make a good anchor, or they could escape their back checkers altogether. So we need to fight for our 5 point and our 4 point. So as a result, the right play, as you can imagine, 8-5 will hit in the 5 point, and 6-4 hits in the 4 point. And this is the correct play. And as you can see, it's not a huge error to play the safe one in this situation, but it's significant. The next kind of precept or principle is kind of a theme that runs throughout this chapter in Dirk's book, because he comes back to it nearly in every position. To be honest, when I first prepared this video, it could have been another 15 minutes longer. It's going to be long enough as it is if I went through each position. But the precept is this, that because double tiger generally increases gammon rates for both players, the match score is often an important factor when considering this play. And I have to say, as I said, when I was preparing the video, at each of the positions I was fiddling around and playing around in XG with the match score, and it did make a huge difference. If we are at gammon go, or even if we're a little bit behind the game, I was finding sometimes if we were 3-0 down in a match to 13, it was right to play the riskier double tiger play. But if we were 3-0 up in a match to 13, it was sometimes better to play the safe play and not do double tiger. So this is one of the big themes in Dirk Schiemann's chapter. The match score is often an important factor. And he's the first of the commentators I've found to say that, but it definitely seems to be hugely important. So this is the position we were just looking at. And at 0-0, the right move was the double tiger play. But if we were even 4-0 up in a match to 13, so we've got a double gammon and we're kind of 4-0 up, it's still early days in the match. But even at that stage, the better move, only by fractions, this is sort of the 4-0 is sort of the tipping point I found. The better move is the safer making an anchor play. So the minute we start to nudge ahead, we need to be less keen on double tiger. The minute we fall behind, you'll find it becomes more attractive to play it. So here's a situation where we're more significantly ahead. It's 9-2 in the match 13, where we kind of the finish line is sort of closer in sight for us. Should we play the double tiger play here? Absolutely not. It becomes it's only a 44-point error, but still a bigger error than it was, because if you nudged up the match score, it becomes more and more. It gets into blunder zone as you get nearly winning there, because you just start playing for safety and not taking the risky plays. But you look at this now at 0-0, it's the right move to do the double tiger, and it's a small error to play the safe play. At 5-0 down in a match to 13, it's now big, well, it's a big blunder. It's an 83 millipoint blunder to play safe. We've got to take chances, even at 5-0 down. Here's an interesting point that Dirk has added out. We were making the 20-point anchor there. If we could make the 21-point anchor, no, sorry, we were making the 21-point anchor. If we can make the 20-point anchor there, so we make it on our opponent's 5-point, that's usually so valuable that it's better than the double tiger play. So he said, this is exactly the same position as the last one, but instead of rolling a 3-2, we rolled a 4-3. And now we have the capacity to make our anchor up the top on our opponent's 5-point. We could, double tiger as before, but instead we can make that anchor up at the top on the golden anchor, and that is just so valuable that's the correct move now, and it becomes quite a significant blunder to have done the double tiger play because we have such a good constructive alternative. Dirk makes the point that part of the reason why this is the better move is because the alternative move, if you look, we've stripped our 8-point. If we did the double tiger play in that position, we'd have stripped our 8-point there, only the 2 checkers and our 8-point. So I went back to the starting position and said, well, look, how significant is this? This doesn't come in the book. This is just me playing around with his ideas. And I took another checker down from our midpoint. So instead of having 4 in our midpoint up in the top left there, I bring one of them down and give us an extra checker in the 8-point. And I said, well, look, now if we double tiger and we take 2 checkers over 8-point to hit black's 2 blots on our home board there, does that make it more attractive to double tiger? And the answer is it makes it more attractive, but it's still very much it's a big error to do so. If we can make our golden anchor, our opponent's 5-point, it's going to be better than double hitting with a double tiger. Again, you could play around with that. Here's a situation where we're 11-2 down in a match to 13, so we're really kind of in trouble here, and you get to that sort of score, and I had to get it up to that sort of score before double hitting was important. So I won't go to, as I said, in every position go in match score, but the match score profoundly changes things in terms of the riskiness of the double tiger, which gives you so many potentials for gammons for both sides, versus the safety of possibly a safer play. I said this, I think it's possibly the last time I do it in this video, just looking at match score. But in match score, it has to be quite a significant. I had to get it up to 11-2 before the double tiger mattered there. Making our own 5-point, Dirk says, is usually so powerful that it outranks the double tiger. But just make sure that that doing this, playing the safer play and making the 5-point suits our game plan, particularly for priming. So this is the example he gives. Again, we've rolled a 3 and a 2. You can see down the bottom we've options with the 3 and the 2. You could start off by saying, well, look, you could hit from 6 to 4 with the 2, and then go on and hit on the ace point with 4 to 1. The problem with that is we're kind of got a bit of a priming game going on here, and with that priming game, we don't want to bury a checker deep. So it's contrary to what our plan is. And he also, Dirk Schiemann mentions a principle of his own that comes up elsewhere in his book. It isn't really relevant to double tiger play, but I just thought I'd mention it. He says you should avoid hitting on the ace point when your bar point is made. So having made the bar point, we've made our 7-point there, we should avoid hitting on the 1-point as well. So there are other options. And I have to admit, I was always told, well, look, if you can make your 5-point, make your 5-point. So we can hit from 8 to 5 and then play in from 7 to 5 and make a 5-point. That's not a bad option. But the only thing with that is, if you look at our game plan, we probably have a bit of a priming game plan going on there. And in doing that, if anything, we've weakened our prime. We've left a big stack on our 6-point and done nothing about the big stack on our 6-point. So is there a better alternative? And the better alternative is the double tiger play. So yes, we can hit with 8 to 5 as before, but we can also hit with 6 to 4. We reduce the big stack, and if we are not hit at this stage, if black doesn't manage to hit one of our numbers there, we're massively favourites now to make the prime. and in a much stronger position to do so. So strong, even that kind of cubing decisions will come into play if black doesn't hit one of our 2 points there. And clearly a big, again, error not to play the double hit in this position. Nothing to do with anything that's gone before, but Dirk just comes up with an extra little example, and he just says that the double tiger can sometimes be used as a tempo play when there's just nothing better to do, and he gives this as an example of that. I'm looking up the top there, and I have to admit, before doing this chapter, I'd have definitely looked up the top and being risk averse, thought, well, I'm going to make that anchor in my opponent's board with the 3. What do I do with the 5? I could probably the safest thing is to play 7-2. Give black just one shot at it. Not very constructive, and Dirk makes the point that you're giving black a free shot at yourself there. You've made a kind of a not a particularly helpful anchor, and you've given black all the initiative, and they've loads of good rolls in the next go. So let's go back to that, and he says, well, look, rather than giving black loads of good rolls next go, let's take time off them. That whole tempo timing thing is, let's kill their tempo. So if we play 8-5 with the 3, and then 6-1 with the 5, it leaves black shots, but it kills their timing. And if they hit us back, look, there's nothing really settling in their home board. So for that reason, we can afford to take that play, and it's the correct move. But he goes on in this position to make another important point that I think is worth just us kind of learning from. He said, yeah, risky plays that fight for good points are usually preferable to what he calls safer, non-constructive alternatives. So we did that move. It was risky, but it doesn't. If we got hit back, it wouldn't be a problem, and it was helping with build tempo, steal tempo from our opponent. But this only applies when your opponent's board is still weak. And if that was the position we were in, he just takes 2 of black's checkers and he gives black their 3-point. So we're going to move 2 black checkers in onto their 3-point. It's not even their best point. It's not the 5-point or the 4-point. We've given their 3-point, which is not their greatest point. And suddenly, does that change things? The answer is absolutely. Suddenly, it's a blunder there down the 4th choice there, a blunder to do the double hit, the double tiger move, because suddenly there's that much more risk. If we get hit back, which we're likely to be, we're far more likely to dance, and for that reason, it changes everything. I looked and Dirk didn't do this. I just thought, well, hang on, what if I give us an extra point? Does that mean now we should play safer because we're ahead in the race? Should we be a little bit more cautious and try and bank our lead? Absolutely not. It means that there's more chance of black dancing if we do the double tiger. So for that reason, it's even more important that we do it. It turns what was an error into a blunder, not to do the double tiger. I like the way Dirk Schiemann phrases this next point. And as before, as I said in the last video, sometimes I'm trying to give one of these introductory slides with the 2 tigers, just to introduce another position that he's given. But I love what he says about this, is when our opponent threatens to make an important point, we should choose a bold tactical play in order to thwart their plans. And he talks about this. He says, particularly when you play online, you play on autopilot and you don't think. And I have to admit, if I wasn't looking at this, I would say, well, there's such an easy, straightforward 5-2, surely to God is an easy. I'd have very quickly come down 13-8, come down 1 down to the midpoint with the 5, split at the back, surely to God, and not thought about anything else. But let's just put that back there for a second. Look at our opponent's position up the top there. They've lovely diversity. They've 10 checkers in the zone. They look in the next go, it's possible they could make their 5-point and make our 5-point. They've such potential in the next go to kind of really make a very successful move here. They're pretty much guaranteed to make their 5-point in the next go if we don't do something to stop them. And I said it's a roll of 4 at the same time that they'll make our 5-point as well. So we've got to do something about it. So rather than doing kind of the autopilot play 13-8 and then split at the back, we hit. Let's just take the riskier play to thwart their plans. So we've hit with the 5 to the 2. there's not much safe options here with the two. So the easiest thing is just double tigers, put them in the bar, and suddenly the great thing here is even if they hit us back. Imagine if they hit us back here. They're not, unless they're doublets, they're not safetying that checker on their 5 point up the top right, their blot up the top right. So even if we're hit back, we mentioned this in the last video, lovely position for us because we get a shot at that checker up the top, and we can send them back in the race as well. And for that reason, blunder not to do that. But Dirk takes this and he says, well, look, the blot in the top right on their 5 point is everything about this position. It is the key factor of the position, because in attack we're trying to stop them making that point, and also because if we are hit back, we get a shot at actually hitting them on that point. But he said, well, look, if we didn't give them that blot, so we're going to move that blot on their 5 point back to their 6 point here. Does that change whether we should do the kind of the safe play? Absolutely. It completely changes that. Safe is the right play here because they're just threatening an awful lot less all of a sudden by not having that blot there. And I took that blot. I hadn't realised Michi was about to do this, and I'd already kind of just put this. I'd taken the blot and I'd moved it back a little bit further. I'd put it back as a builder. They have an extra builder there in the zone. Does that change things? Well, yes, it does. I'm going to show you I'll show you the XG analysis in a second. But now it's safe because splitting at the back not only although black has lovely diversity there, that builder also is a bit of a blot we can shoot at next go as well. They're going to have to make safe. So for that reason, again, the safer player is right. We don't need to be risky because they're not threatening immediately as strongly as they were when they had the blot on their 5 point. There's a section in the book when Michi covers it, the double tiger, he calls it, when home boards are strong, when both players have a decent home board. I'm skipping it because this whole video series is about the opening game, and he's looking at kind of double tigering late in the game. But the key principle he says there from the start, he just says, look, when both sides have a strong home board, it's a really big gamble. It's a huge volatile risk to play the double tiger then. So he's generally very against it. He gives an example where you could use it, but generally says you're not going to play the double tiger when both sides have a strong home board. I'm not going to dwell on it here because, as I said, this video series is about the opening game. This is where I want to get better. As Bill Roberti says, you play the opening game in every single game, and that's what I want to look at here. So instead, I just thought I'd introduce you a bit of a fun concept. Are you ready, ladies and gentlemen, for a new concept in this video that Dirk Schiemann has introduced me to this evening? It's called the triple tiger. We've had the double tiger, but now we have the triple tiger. And if you think about it, the double tiger is when we do a double hit and leave two blots in our home board. Well, at the triple tiger, you can kind of work out for yourself. If the double tiger leaves two blots on our home board, you can work out what the triple tiger leaves. And he gives just one position, which is kind of an interesting one. And I have to admit, I had a bad match recently, and I was going through my XG analysis afterwards, feeling sorry for myself. And it gave me a position where it left three blots on my home board. And I was saying, XG cannot be right about this. It just something must be wrong. And yet, now having kind of seen this position from Dirk Schiemann, I kind of understand why it was right to leave the three blots. Here's a situation where we've rolled a 6-4, and a 6-4 is a bit of a crappy roll, really, but what can we do with it? Probably without thinking, I'd have come 13-7 and 11-7 and made another blocking point here. Hope that we weren't hitting on our 3 point and that we might be able to escape at the back. It's an option. Another way you could play this. You could play the 6-4, make our point in our blot on our 3 point. We can make that safe by coming down with the 6 and then covering the 3 point. There are definitely options there, but and I have to say I'd have definitely plumped for one of those two in a real life situation over the board. But there is something else we can do with the 6. Black is threatening to make an advanced anchor in our board, and I suppose the way Dirk Schiemann explains this, and it does make sense the way he explains it. What are we trying to do here? We're trying to make an advanced anchor up the top, in the top right there. We've got a bad anchor on our 23 point that's really of no use. We want to try and make an anchor on our 5 point. And if you get an extra check to plonk on there, that would be very helpful. What are we trying to stop black doing? Well, black is the same as us. Black is trying to make an advanced anchor in our home board. So we're trying to make an advanced anchor, and a bit more ammunition would help with that. Black is trying to make an advanced anchor, so we've got to stop them. So let's just see what happens if we play the 6 from the 11 point onto our 5 point. We play the 6 there. We're putting black in the bar. We've left a couple of blots on our home board. It's clearly kind of a risky move, a big gamble, but it delays black making that anchor. What do we do with the 4? Well, we could run from the back, but that defeats the purpose of trying to make, it's actually weakening our chances of making an advanced anchor there. So we're going to put that back and try and get an extra blot hit that we can cover that. We could come down 13 to 9, but that just leaves shed loads of shots everywhere. Again, it's just leaving too many blots around the place. The right move leaves a lot of blots as well, but it's leaving a blot in a position that we don't really need it. So we're going to put that back. What we could do is play from the 8 point and hit black as a blot also on our 4 point. So we can play 8 to 4. And believe it or not, that's the right move. I couldn't believe this when I was analysing my own match and XG wanted me to leave a position like this, and I was going, no way should I be leaving 3 blots on my home board. But if you think about what our objectives are, just to repeat them again, if we're hit, we've got a great chance of using the blot that gets hit to come in on our opponent's 5 point, make our 20 point golden anchor. It gives us a great chance of making an anchor up there. If we don't do it, we're fighting for the points we really, really want to make. And Dirk Schiemann just notes, he says, look, there are 7 rows that don't hit us. That's not great odds. 7 out of 3 is not great odds. But if black doesn't hit us on one of those 3 points, we instantly become a big favourite to win this game. So there's just an example. I have to admit, I do not have the cojones to play a move like that over the board in a real life game. I have enjoyed studying this position and listening to Dirk Schiemann's analysis of it. I just am too chicken to try that myself, but I just thought I'd include it because it's in this section of the book. And as you see, it's not just that. Not only is it the right move, it's a big blunder to do anything else. And I put it in match scores, and match scores don't even influence it. Even when we're well ahead, if we were kind of about 8-0 up in a match to 13, it's still a blunder not to play that kind of crazy triple tiger move. So finally, finish up with Dirk Schiemann's book is great, and at the end of every chapter, one of the nice things about his book is he gives little test questions for you to do yourself. So here's one of Dirk Schiemann's test questions at the end of his chapter 5 that you can test yourself on. There's the position. We've rolled a 5 and a 4. How would you play the 5 and a 4? And I'm assuming that you've paused the video, and now that you have unpaused the video, well, we've options. And again, there's the safe play, come down 13 to 8 and split at the back with the 24 to 20. But the way Dirk says, there's so many good rolls. If you can count them up, black has so much potential to hit one of our points in his own board, or to escape the back checkers, or make an anchor. Dirk Schiemann's book is all about momentum and kind of control. We give all the momentum and control to black if we play this way, and it's just too passive. So we've got to go back and think again. And given that this is a video about double tiger play, it'll come as no surprise that we're going to hit with the from 8 to 4, and that was the one where we kind of came down from the 13 point hitting the 4, but instead we hit with 8 to 4 and hitting the 8 to 3. Double tigers is the correct move. As you can see, it's not a massive blunder not to do it, but it's definitely we want to hit. He does note, just one final thing that Dirk Schiemann doesn't note is that we have an extra checker on our 5 point there. We have 10 checkers in the zone, so we can afford to be aggressive. If we put that checker back, and now we've only 9 checkers in the zone, hitting on the from 8 to 4 and 8 to 3 we'd lose our 8 point. We just have a blot on the left and our 8 point, and it becomes better to do the single hit. But he just notes that as an anomaly. Right, sorry, that's another. My video is getting a bit long-winded at the minute, but it's just such a complex topic. This double tiger play, but that's Dirk Schieman's taken it. I really enjoyed reading his book and reading his section on it. He's so clear and kind of accurate about it. But we find that there's going to be one final video what Bill Roberti has to say, and that'll round up finally the double tiger play.